My name is Aaron Walker. I'm a professional tattoo artist. I do a lot of watercolor tattoos. I've got a private studio in downtown Little Rock, and I'm about to tattoo a rose on a hand. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
How long have you been tattooing?
9, almost 10 years. I started tattooing in 2014.
Was this your only career, or did you do something else before?
Before this, I worked as a barista in coffee shops, but this is my only actual career, I would say. Before that, I was in school for ministry for a bit, and that didn't last too long.
Did you grow up doing art? Where did your art career start?
I've been doing art ever since I could hold a crayon, so yeah, pretty much my whole life. I had way too many coloring books as a kid, and I've just always kind of fell in love with drawing and the whole process of color and coloring in general. I started to kind of take my art more serious in my early 20s. I started drawing more traditional tattoo flash and stuff like that. Tried to work on a portfolio and build that up, and then sought out an apprenticeship.
What made you first realize that you could do this as a career?
I had a lot of friends that worked in tattoo shops as like piercers and different things like that, and just kind of hanging around tattoo shops, I realized that's pretty much what they did, was draw and do things that they loved like that. So I tried to bunker down and take myself serious enough to do this. I figured that, if other people could do it, so could I.
How did you figure out the style that you wanted to do?
That kind of weirdly came naturally. Whenever I first started tattooing, I did a lot of just color tattoos in general. I wanted to do a style called New School, which is very cartoony, almost based off of graffiti, and I still love that style. It's a lot of fun to tattoo, but I got asked to do a couple of watercolor tattoos, and I had a lot of fun doing them, and that was probably in like my first few years of tattooing. And then one day I thought to myself that I had a lot of fun doing them and just wanted to keep doing them, so I told myself that some styles aren't for everybody, and there should always be somebody that wants to be good at certain styles. Like, for example, there's people that started doing tribal in the 90s, and they still to this day do it. I just started thinking to myself, my style isn't for everybody, and that's completely fine. But I necessarily don't want to be a black and gray artist, or any other kind of style. You could name any style, really, but while I can do black and gray, it's not what I want to specialize in. And there's people out there that definitely can do watercolor, but it's probably not what they want to do every day either. So you might as well have somebody that's going to want to do it and try their best to be really great at it. And that's what I sought out to do. I don't know if it's a foolish thing, but I have always told myself that one day I want to be one of the best in the world at doing this painterly kind of watercolor style, and I try as hard as I can to do that.
So something that you explained to me really well, I think at our first session together, was the different types of watercolor, because there's a lot of talk online about how you shouldn't do watercolor, it doesn't last as long, but there are different techniques. How do you build out watercolor on the skin?
I go from a very traditional tattoo standpoint. I put a lot of black in my tattoos. I still outline tons of it in the black and make sure that it has contrast, just like any other tattoo would. A very common misconception that people think to do with watercolor, or maybe how it's done, is to actually dilute your ink or your pigment down with water, and you should never ever do that. The only time that's ever necessary is doing like a gray wash for black and gray. With watercolor, you can get the same kind of translucent effect just from knowing how to do certain techniques or hand speeds and things like that with what you're doing.
Cool.
Yeah, these are cartridges, needle cartridges.
Okay.
I use a lot of different ones. On average, just like a smaller to medium-sized watercolor tattoo, I'm probably going to use at least 5 to 6 different needle sizes and configurations. It's kind of like different sizes of pencils and paint brushes. You use different things for different techniques. I use some stuff for like really small dots and lines. I use stuff for more bold lines that I can sculpt. I use different sizes for mags for coloring. I like to use bigger ones usually just because they blend easier, they saturate really well, and in my opinion they're a little less traumatic on the skin.
What is something that you wish you'd known when you first started as a tattoo artist?
To not give a fuck what other people think. I would have given anything to just get headfirst into this style that I do a lot quicker. I wish I would have tried to stop impressing other people just for the sake of having their respect. Because I feel like being more true to yourself, people will desire to be around you more so than just trying to kiss ass in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. What skills do you need to be a tattoo artist?
I would definitely say drawing. You gotta have a very big passion for it. Art in general, I think you need to be a pretty patient person. Patience is never something that has come easy or natural to me, but things like tattooing definitely taught me how to be a lot more patient of a person. It definitely taught me how to take critiques more to be able to become a better artist, which, you know, it's early on I would, I guess, get defensive whenever people would try to critique or give advice, but, you know, now I see the majority of them were coming from a good place. And I really think you just have to have a love for people in a weird way. I think that realizing that having this kind of a job is definitely a gift. It's a gift that we get to tattoo at all. So I think it should be taken very seriously. And I think that if people realize, you know, their job is literally to make somebody more comfortable or more happy in their skin, then they come from it from almost like a more humble perspective.
So what is the process of becoming a tattoo artist?
Generally, the way it's always kind of been is you usually ask a tattoo artist that you like their work and respect their stuff to teach you to tattoo. Most of the time they require to see, you know, skills of art, so they want a portfolio, usually of different things like drawings, paintings, flash art. You know, the more kind of designs that you have that could be a tattooable design, usually the better. They do have tattoo schools, and certain places like Oregon actually requires you to go to a tattoo school rather than earn a apprenticeship under somebody. In a proper apprenticeship, you actually do learn a lot of, you know, what you need to be doing. Now, you do learn a lot of hard lessons. You go through almost weird hazing, which I don't know if you want to call it that, but you go through a lot of shit in order to be able to have the right and the respect to be able to tattoo. It's not something that, you start apprenticing and, a couple days or a couple weeks, even a few months go by, and generally you're not going to be tattooing for a long time. Like, most apprenticeships last at least a minimum of 2 years or so. And usually the first year, you're just doing, the grunt work of the shop, working on drawings, and, what they used to call, you were the shop bitch, actually.
Yeah, okay.
That's a pretty common term for apprentices. And then whenever they feel like, you've done well enough with your art, you've kind of earned their respect, they're going to actually take the time and teach you properly is how it's supposed to go.
Sounds a little toxic.
It can be. There's a lot of old things in the tattoo industry that thankfully have started dying out. A lot of that, like, old school mentality of, like, well, I went through it, so you have to go through it too, in a lot of cases is dying out. Like, I even heard of one artist that, very, very respected artist, very great at what he does. He even was telling people, try paying your apprentices, like an actual paying them.
Because you're
like
doing work.
Yeah, you're definitely doing work. And, a lot of people started to ridicule him just for saying, why don't you pay your apprentices? Because they're like, oh, that's not how it goes. They're supposed to pay us, or basically, just be a slave to the shop so that way we can teach them. And from his standpoint, he was saying that, try doing this and see how much, like, more work ethic they actually have whenever they already feel respected. Because for me, with, one of my apprenticeships that I went through, I had to work a secondary job just to pay bills and rent. So I was usually up at 4 a.m. every morning and, finally back at home by like maybe 11 o'clock at night. And that was just an average day for me, 5-6 days a week.
That's not sustainable.
You do what you have to do if you love it and you want it. That's what I was always told. I think that if some people were, actually in the mindset of treating their apprentices differently, like they're actually doing work and paying them, then, you might actually have somebody that respects you, what they're doing a little bit more as a whole. I think that it could be beneficial if it was done correctly,
Yeah. There's a lot of value in it. It's a very beautiful art form. It's a very healing art form.
Yeah, I mean, not just for the client, but I feel like, when you have a tattoo artist that truly loves what they do, I know me personally, I can be having not the best day sometimes, and if I start tattooing, I can just literally get lost. It's a very meditative thing because the process of how you do it, you've got to be very self-aware in everything that you're doing to make sure you're doing it correctly. I think that along with the breathing techniques that you have to do, it's just very, very methodical, and it's calming in a weird way.
Yeah. What's the process from start to finish of getting a tattoo on someone's skin?
You typically start with a design. It can be something that either you just draw, or somebody might ask for, like, a custom piece of work that it's almost like a commissioned kind of thing, but you're not necessarily paying them just for the drawing, you're paying them for the tattoo. So somebody books an appointment with you, you get a design, they agree upon the design, because obviously you don't want to put something on somebody they're not going to want. And then after that, you put on a stencil that's usually done from a carbon transfer. We have machines and stuff that do them. Some people still make them by hand, or some people even just draw straight on the skin with Sharpie markers or whatever kind of markers I guess you got. It just depends on the artist. Everybody's got a little bit of a different way to do it, but the most common thing is put a stencil on and use needles and pigment to put it in the skin with a tattoo machine.
Did you have to learn how to like not, because you can force the ink in too far and cause a blowout, right?
Yes.
Did you have to learn that process?
Yes. Whenever I first started, and I was actually allowed to have a tattoo machine in my hands, they made me start practicing on things like grapefruits and melons and stuff like that, because you can actually judge depth of a needle doing that. After doing enough of those, they let me tattoo myself, and then I learned really fast, really hard how to not mess up somebody's skin, because I definitely did it on myself, and I had to rework it months later after it finally healed and stopped scabbing. But yeah, you definitely have to learn how to do it properly and not go too far into skin. Normally it sits in about the first and second layer of your skin. If you push it too far, then you get what's called a blowout, where the color or the lines, which is typically where you get blowouts, will start spreading under the skin, kind of like how markers do on paper. And
Or like a hematoma?
yeah, it's just not a good thing. It will ruin your tattoo. It doesn't look very flattering, and I mean, it's not what you want to give people.
Even this looks really cool so far. If it stayed like that, it just looks dope.
They say that if the tattoo only has black and it still looks good, then you're doing good with it.
Yeah,
So I feel like we're on a good course for it.
absolutely.
I'll start some of the background green now, and then we'll do the rest of the rose.
Okay. So, is it possible to make a living as a tattoo artist?
Very possible. You just have to really put everything you have into it. You definitely gotta usually either be at a busy shop or find a way to stand out. I mean, tattooing is literally how I take care of my family. I think I tell every single one of my clients that, and just how grateful I am, because we can actually, live off of art, which so many people, I've always heard the term starving artist, but I don't agree with that. I think that, if you actually put yourself out there, you can make it work. It's just, how hard do you want it? How bad do you want it?
Was it hard to build a loyal clientele?
Uh,
Because you've been all over the place too.
yeah. Yes and no. Like, I try to be a very genuine person. I try to be the same person to, everybody that I tattoo, everybody that I come in contact with. So I have a lot of people that are loyal because I am a genuine person to them. Building the clientele over the years definitely can be hard. It depends on your area that you're in. It depends on what kind of style you're doing. Tattooers are almost a dime a dozen at this point, so you've got to either do something to stand out, or you just got to be a freaking awesome stand-up person, usually, for people to keep coming back. And hopefully I'm a little bit of both on that.
Well, I think so.
Thank you.
And I do want to point out the magic, because I'm someone who owns my own business. Now you own your own business. There's magic in being able to do this, because it's not easy. It's not easy to do what you love and follow your passion. So
Yeah, it takes a lot of work, but at the end of the day, I would much rather be working for myself, for my family, so that way we can, we're not rich by any means, but we are actually able to take care of ourselves, and it's because of art. And a lot of people can't do that, working, their corporate jobs, their 9-to-5 office things, and, I get to do something that I truly love. I have this desire inside of me that I can't console unless I'm creating something, so this definitely quenches the thirst for that, if that makes sense.
yeah, it does, for sure. So we're in the hard stage right now with the knuckles.
Yeah, it's not fun for you.
Surviving though. What are your goals for the future?
Honestly, I want to be able to buy my family a house one day. I mean, that's almost even unheard of for a lot of people, but I think with enough time and hard work that I can do that. I really would love to be able to travel more. I've kind of traveled a good bit doing this already, which was never an option for me, growing up kind of in a poor household. Anything good that I have in life is because of tattooing and because of art. I want to be able to do a lot more conventions, kind of get my name out there, push this style hard, and eventually I want to be able to do like international guest spots in other countries, because most of my favorite artists that do watercolor tattoos are not in the US, most of which are over in like Europe, Spain, Greece, places like that. And I would love to be able to get tattooed by them, learn from them a little bit, and maybe even get lucky enough to collaborate pieces with them if they were into that.
Yeah. And you said that before, that everything good in your life came from tattooing. You even mentioned meeting your wife Katie through tattooing.
Yeah, we met back in 2015. I was working at a shop in Alabama, and she came in wanting to get a tattoo, and like I mentioned before, I really wanted to do a lot of colorful, like new school tattoos at the time, and that's exactly what she came into the shop for. And she got a paint palette with paint splattered all on it, which is kind of funny to me now that most of my stuff looks like it's been painted on. But we met with me tattooing her, and the minute she walked into the door, I kind of was head over heels for her. I was even listening to one of my favorite bands at the time, which a lot of people don't listen to or know about, and she named them, immediately, and it was, oh, is this the Gaslight Anthem? And I was hooked. We became best friends. We just started hanging out a lot. It was a very innocent kind of thing at first, and still is innocent, I guess. But
one child, one marriage later.
Yeah.
A whole life together.
Yeah.
Pure intentions. Yeah.
Yeah. We just became the best of friends, and still are. It's something that I never thought that I would meet such a genuine soul, and it happened doing something that I love. And to me, that shows that I feel like if you're being true to yourself and being honest about what you want out of the universe, as long as you're willing to work for it, anything can happen for you. I truly believe that.
What has been the biggest challenge of being a tattoo artist?
That is a big question.
Multiple parts?
Yeah, I think that being able to juggle any type of a normal, like, social life is always really hard. Because one of the biggest things with tattooing is it's not a clock in, clock out job. It's never going to be a 9 to 5 job or whatever set hours you want, because even when you're not tattooing, you're constantly answering messages, you're posting, to try to make more appointments or availability, you're drawing for appointments, you're drawing flash designs or just pre-drawn stuff. Like, it's like it never really stops, so it's hard to maintain a normal life and also to set, like, I guess, boundaries. Because, there's times whenever, I'm at home that all I want to do is hang out with my wife and my kid, and I'm literally sitting there stressed because I've got a half sleeve appointment, that I haven't been able to draw anything for, and it's in 12 hours, and I never want to be rushed or give my clients less than what they deserve, but at the same time, I still have to, be there for my family because they will always come first.
And I think that's not unique to having a family too. It's like I struggle with boundaries too, and I don't have a kid in my life, but it takes practice, I think.
Yeah, it's I've always been a very big people pleaser. It's hard for me to say no to a lot of things, so like I will kind of work myself to death a lot. While I enjoy this, I definitely still need to not work every single day. Other than that, I think that one of the hardest things is really staying consistent, staying busy, doing what you're doing. I feel like I'm constantly always, posting stuff, trying to make more appointments, trying to post the tattoos that I've done. So it's just, there's never gonna, I don't ever want to lapse in my work where there's just like a lull or anything. So I can keep going, keep pushing to do better, keep staying busy.
I just love how you built that color out. Wow, just the shading is good.
Thank you. Color just makes sense to me. I have a weird obsession and love with it. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called synesthesia.
Yeah, we talked about that before. Explain what it is.
So synesthesia is, I may not say the best thing, so if you're listening to this, look up synesthesia. There's different forms of it. But in general, it's when your brain makes a certain type of connection in a different way than normal. For example, a lot of people, when they hear music, will see color, or certain people will, see a color and they like taste something in their mouths, and it's just a connection that their brain has made over the years. And I have a form of synesthesia that whenever I see a color, it has like a number to it and has a, adverse effect. So when I see a certain number, it has a color almost like assigned to it. So whenever I see that, I just, in my head, I guess I know what numbers, look good together. I also have a weird feeling like I feel like colors have emotions to them almost, and it's to some people that may be crazy, but
that's literally color theory, though. There, you can tell like certain colors prompt certain people to feel a certain way, more hungry, like the red and yellow from McDonald's. Yeah.
I mean, there's like certain shades of blue that will make people feel more calm than any other color. Yeah, there's definitely color theory that can play into it, but like, I don't know. For example, like my synesthesia always tells me that, the color green is the number 3, and like, the number 6 is always yellow. So whenever I see 36, I automatically taste like a lemon lime flavor in my mouth, and it's strange.
That's wild. So you have two different forms. You taste things, but you also associate with numbers.
Yes, it's only certain things, taste certain ways, I guess. But most of it for me is like a numerical kind of thing. Some people even do that with certain letters and stuff like that. There's no one, I guess, true form of synesthesia. It can vary from person to person, but I'm a very proud synesthetic.
What's a superpower?
Essentially, yeah. I feel like I almost get to cheat a little bit doing this and just kind of go with what I feel will be right, and it usually works out pretty well.
So what are some of the ways that you make the tattoo experience to be as pain-free as possible? Because, I mean, there's pain involved. Don't get me wrong. This is not fun, but what are some techniques that you use?
I always recommend taking stuff like ibuprofen, Tylenol, stuff like that. It works really well for the inflammation. I'm a big believer in using stuff like Bactine, which has like a small amount of a lidocaine spray, so you can use that during your process to kind of help with the swelling, let people sit a little bit better. I'm not a big believer in the numbing cream, the pre-numb stuff, because there have been many cases of people having almost like allergic reactions and having like open wounds happen to their skin. A lot of those aren't FDA approved, so they are not the best thing to do. I've had people use them. I've had mixed results, mixed feelings on them, but my general thing would say not to pre-numb it. Breathing techniques are always wonderful. They can get you through a lot of stuff in life.
Besides tattoos.
Yeah. Having a tattoo artist with a light hand like I do, I guess. That's what people usually tell me. Different things like that. I think that determination more than anything is a good thing for getting tattooed. You're gonna have to know going in that it's gonna hurt. Usually the people that sit the worst are the ones that think that they won't be fazed by it, or think that they're just too tough for it. And like, yeah, some people you wouldn't be able to tell it even bothers them in the slightest. Like, you've actually been sitting really well this whole time.
Thank you.
But yeah, congrats to you. You're sitting better than I did when I got my hand done.
Do I get an A++ in being tattooed, Aaron?
Oh yeah, you got a gold star for it today.
Thank
But
you. That's
yeah, I definitely think that as long as you know going in, it's gonna suck, and you know what you're capable of. Like, the human body can go through a lot. Not saying like just to torture yourself or put up with something bad, but I think that people are a lot stronger than they sometimes want to give themselves credit for.
Yeah.
I'm a big baby when I get tattooed, and I feel like if I can do it, pretty much anybody can do it within reason.
Yeah, for sure. But that's also why I like working with you too, because you're like, yep, I'm a big baby too. We'll get through this together.
Oh
really
yeah, I mean,
that.
there's give and take with tattoos. Like, you should never ever be in a position with your tattoo artist where you feel forced through something, or that you feel unsafe or uncomfortable. There should always be a very clear line of communication of what they're doing, what they're going to do. Hey, this is going to hurt a little bit. Like, I've heard of, and actually seen tattoo artists like mock people and stuff, and that's not necessarily the best thing to do. I've had clients where they sat horribly, and I still tried to be very, very patient with them, because, people go through it, and it's just part of it. But at the end of the day, we're nothing without our clients. You better treat your clients well, or else they're going to go to another tattoo artist who cares more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like obsessed with the layering.
That's fun. Alright, we're going to tilt your hand here. Go over here. Sorry, it's going to suck a little bit.
It's gonna suck. Oh.
Try to be quick with it over here.
Feel it in the bones.
Yeah, it'll rattle a little bit, but you're being a champ, so it'll be okay.
That's all I want. I want to be so good at getting tattoos, Aaron. You don't even know.
Unfortunately, I think the more you get, the more they start hurting.
Yeah.
Because your body's like, oh, we're going through this again? I'm going to stop sending off the endorphins like I used to.
I mean, I need to slow them down a little bit.
No way. Get covered. Get completely covered. We're going to tattoo your face next, I think. So as far as healing, I typically use a second skin type of bandage. I like to use a company called Recovery, and they have a bandage called Derm Shield. It's essentially the same kind of thing they use in medical settings for holding ports, IVs, things like that. And the way it works is I put a bandage on your tattoo after we're finished, and it stays on up to 24 hours. It fills up with a lot of plasma. A lot of people on TikTok and social media like to call it an ink sac. I'm not really sure where that came from, but that's just what they call it.
Ink sac?
Yes.
So maybe because it holds the ink after the plasma gets started?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's just it looks really gross.
It does look gross.
But honestly, it's all good. That's what's supposed to happen.
Because having the plasma actually helps with the healing process.
In this type of setting, yes. If you were not using a second skin type of bandage, plasma, in my opinion, is not a good thing on your tattoo, because it actually is what causes scabbing.
Okay.
And using this type of bandage for me personally has always yielded better healing results and less scabbing. People usually leave it on, for up to 24 hours, and I have them change it out, clean their tattoo, and reapply a second bandage on it. And that second bandage can stay on up to about 5 days. Generally, if you leave it on for the 5-day kind of amount, your tattoo is generally pretty healed whenever you first take it off. It's going to definitely be a little dry, a little peely, maybe flake a little bit, but all that's supposed to happen. I just feel like while that bandage is on, it's doing all the hard work for you. You don't really have to wash it a ton, which I feel like a lot of times washing it too much almost can cause like irritation and just things that you don't want for a fresh tattoo. So they're almost dummy proof in my opinion, because if I can make them work and my tattoos heal on myself really well, then they'll probably work well for other people too.
And washing a fresh tattoo sucks.
It burns. It's literally like having road rash that you're cleaning over and over. It's not pleasant for anybody that's never had a tattoo. Not to discourage anybody from ever getting a tattoo. Go get the tattoo if you want one.
Yes. There's ways to work with it. And so there's different types of healing too for tattoos, is that right?
Yeah, so that's one of the more newer kind of ways, like using this type of bandage that I do. It's gotten really popular maybe in the past, like, I don't know, 5 years or so. A lot of other people, like the old school way was wash it, put something like Aquaphor or A&D ointment on it, which I never suggest to put those on a fresh tattoo because a petroleum-based product doesn't let your tattoo breathe properly. I think that if you're going to wash it and everything, just to do antibacterial soap that's non-scented and then use a non-scented lotion on it will yield a lot better results. There's even some people that do more dry healing, which just means you wash your tattoo with the soap, you pat it dry, and then you leave it dry, which I personally don't like. I feel like that's gonna cause a lot longer of a healing process, a lot more rough of a healing process. You're definitely gonna be scabbing a little bit more. And I feel like usually that, for me, has always had to do more touch-ups and everything, which touch-ups are definitely part of the business, part of it. But I think that, you know, if you can get a good heal the first time around, it's going to be better on your client's skin rather than having to go back over and go back over it.
We're finishing it up. Almost done. Thank you so much, Aaron, for all this work and for chatting with me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
So I'm going to do a little sign-off, and then I have a question for you to end this.
All right.
This has been Sustaining Craft with your host, Elizabeth Silverstein, and my guest today, Aaron Walker, as we chatted, as he gave me a hand tattoo. Music has been provided by Jim Giago of 7 Second Chance. Catch his music on Spotify and around Denver most weekends. Aaron, before we sign off completely, what advice do you have for someone who would like to consider making tattoos their career?
The joke answer is usually don't.
Don't do it.
But, you know, all seriousness, I guess it would be, how bad do you really want this? For me, tattooing isn't just a hobby. It's not something I would ever do part-time. Whenever I actually have ever heard somebody say, oh, I would love to tattoo, but I don't think I would make a career out of it. I think I would just do it part-time. It genuinely pisses me off. This is something that it's something that breathes life into me and to the people that I get to be around. I think that if you really want to do this, you have to first ask yourself, how bad do you really want this? For me, I picked up and moved across country with absolutely no guarantee to be able to make this, and I somehow made it work for me. I think that if you're serious, you need to develop skills of drawing, make a portfolio of different kind of flash designs, things like that. I think that you literally have to give it your all. This is not something you can ever half-ass. You have to literally go full ass on it. I think that there needs to be some kind of a burning desire in you that can't be quenched until you get to this point. I think that's the craziest answer I can think of, but it's probably the most honest. I'm just gonna do it like this for a second while I pour it away. I'm gonna try to be real quick.
Looking pretty, though.
It's looking so pretty.
That's gonna be bomb-ass tattoo when it's healed. I mean, it's a bomb ass tattoo now, but I'm in pain.
Yeah,
I'm hurting.
I know. You got a bigger hand tattoo than I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yours goes up to there.
Dang.